Hi, my name is Tom O'Mara, and today we're going to talk about the auto calibration feature in the JC-30D-EZ kit. Here you'll see the kit, and it includes the monitor, the light source, and the light detector. With the auto calibrate feature enabled, at the end of a burner cycle, the JC-30D will initiate a calibration automatically between the light source and the light detector once it senses that the fan has shut off. In order to use the auto calibrate feature, you do need to have the fan motor starter wired into discrete input 3 of the JC-30D. The advantage of the auto calibrate feature is that it prevents the operator from having to clean the lens of the light source or the light detector as much as he or she normally would have to. So what this also means is that the boiler room operator would not have to climb up the ladder nearly as many times in order to clean the soot off the lens of the source or the detector. This is an example of a 30% opacity test filter. As you can see, this isn't a lot of blockage, and just this can cause a burner to shut down. In almost all parts of the country, 20% opacity is the legal limit. In many cities, local codes require the burner to automatically shut down if opacity is greater than 20% for more than 2 minutes. In unmanned or single shift boiler rooms, this could cause a costly nuisance shutdown. The new auto calibrate feature in the JC-30D-EZ zeroes out soot and dust buildup in order to prevent nuisance shutdowns, and it will still accurately measure opacity. Here are 6 of the filters, and as you can see, this represents a really heavy soot or dust buildup. In a few moments, I'll show you how the JC-30D-EZ can calibrate out even this much filth and yet still accurately measure opacity without causing a nuisance shutdown. So what we're going to do today is simulate a buildup of dirt on the lens of the light source, which is going to represent a lot of opacity in your stack. To do so, we're going to use our light filter assemblies, which you'll commonly see hanging off of all of our light sources. These are used in the field by inspectors of boiler rooms to simulate a 30% opacity signal. So what I'm going to do first is install one of our light filter assemblies in front of our light source. That's going to simulate 30% opacity, and then we're going to perform auto calibrate to bring it back to 0. From there, we're going to install another 5 or so of the light filters to increase the opacity even more to show you that the JC-30D-EZ kit will be able to perform a calibration even with that much dirt built up on the lens. After that, we're going to show the addition of one more light filter assembly to prove that the JC-30D can still recognize even more opacity with a heavy buildup on the lens. So you can see now we're at roughly 30 to 31, 32% opacity with one filter installed. And we're going to initiate the auto calibrate sequence to get this back down to reading 0% opacity. So right now I'm simulating the burner shutting off and the fan contacts opening, de-energizing input 3 on the JC-30D. So while this is auto-caling, you're not going to notice too much of a change on your front bar graph. However, you will notice that the values may shoot pretty high. In this case, you saw it go over 100% and then shoot back down low. That's because we're purposely cycling on and off the LED bulb in the light source while we're performing the auto cal, but it's all actually happening in the background. So now what I'm going to do is simulate the buildup of even more dirt on the lens of the light source by adding an additional 5 of our light filter assemblies. This is going to represent a system that has not been cleaned in a very long time, and using the auto calibrate feature in the JC-30, the ability to get the system back down to showing 0% opacity. So now you'll see with the 5 additional light filters installed that the opacity rose pretty high to about 84%. We're going to run the auto calibrate again, and we will see how the JC-30D will get this right back down to 0. So again, the auto calibration process is happening, and we should wind up right back at 0% opacity, even with all this buildup on the lens. This is a big advantage over our competition's light sources and light detectors, and even our own previous ones. In this way, the operator doesn't have to get up on the ladder and clean these things nearly as often as they would used to. So the AutoCal cycle has completed. You could see on the bottom you got the Auto Calibrate OK message. And even with that much buildup still on the lens of the source or the detector, we're still able to get this back to reading 0% opacity. So now that we've had another successful AutoCal, even with the simulated heavy buildup of dirt on the light source lens, the final thing that I'm going to show you is that by adding one more light filter assembly, the JC-30D's ability to still recognize more opacity in the system and shut down your boiler accordingly. So you can see with the additional lens, the JC-30D is indicating 31% opacity. Now that we have some opacity in our system, I'm going to demonstrate the light detector's ability to reject stray light. This is important because stray light getting into the lens of the light detector can give the false indication of the lack of opacity in the system. This could turn into a potentially unsafe situation. So I'm going to take my flashlight and shine it around the outer edge of the lens of the light detector. And you're not going to see any change in the readout in the JC-30D monitor. Now, the reason I'm going around the outer edge is because that's where most stray light in a boiler room is going to come from, either via adjacent windows or other lighting. It's not until I shine my flashlight directly onto the front of the bulb that you'll notice a change in opacity signal. Another new feature in our JC-30D-EZ kit are the Ridgid mounts that we're now using to secure the light source and the light detector to the pipe which goes through your boiler stack. These Ridgid mounts allow for easier alignment during installation, as well as a less of a chance for them to become misaligned after being in operation. And while we're on the topic of Ridgid mounts, by simply adding an additional Ridgid mount to the JC-30D-EZ light source and light detector, you now have the ability to directly replace existing light sources and detectors in the field. Another of our user-friendly features for the new JC-30D-EZ light source is the ability for the user to easily replace the LED assembly in the field should it burn out. By simply loosening the 4 screws on the back of the LED assembly, which can be found inside the light source itself, you could take out the old LED and put in a new one. And lastly, we now offer the JC-30D-EZ kit in a pre-assembled NEMA-4 wall mount enclosure. See part number and description below. If you have any further questions on the JC-30D-EZ kit or any of our other products, visit our website at preferred-mfg.com or give us a call at 203-743-6741.